In 2003, a maintenance worker opened a storage unit that hadn't been touched in 7 years. Inside, he found 23 journals, all written in the same handwriting. Each one documented a crime. None of the crimes had ever been reported. And by the time police read the last entry, they realized the writer was still out there. Before we continue, subscribe and turn on notifications, because stories like this are more common than you think. What you're about to hear are 5 cases that investigators, journalists, and even families refuse to discuss publicly. Not because they've been solved, but because the answers they found were worse than the mysteries themselves. These aren't unsolved crimes. They're cases that were solved and then buried, because some truths are too disturbing to let the public know. Let's begin. Rosewood, Oregon. Population 11,000. In the fall of 1987, the town held a secret meeting. No official record exists. No minutes were taken, but everyone who attended remembers it. The meeting wasn't about zoning laws or school funding. It was about whether to tell the truth. It started when a construction crew broke ground on a new elementary school. They were excavating the foundation when the foreman's shovel hit something solid. Not rock, not clay, concrete, poured concrete, 10 feet below the surface, in a perfect rectangle. They called the county engineer. He took one look and told them to stop digging. By nightfall, the site was closed. No explanation given. 3 days later, the town council called an emergency meeting. It was invitation only. No press. No recording devices. Just the council members, the police chief, the county coroner, and 27 residents who'd lived in Rosewood since before 1960. What they discussed has never been made public. But 2 weeks later, construction on the school resumed. The concrete slab was removed, quietly, at night, and the foundation was poured over the original site. A young reporter from Portland heard rumors and drove to Rosewood. Her name was Sarah Pendleton. She wanted to know what was buried under that slab. She interviewed the foreman. He wouldn't talk. She interviewed the county engineer. He told her to leave town. She filed a Freedom of Information request. It was denied. The reason given: no public interest served. Sarah didn't give up. She found the night crew who removed the slab. One of them, a man named Dennis Carver, agreed to meet her at a diner 30 miles outside Rosewood. He told her what they found. It wasn't a body. It was 17 bodies. All children. All buried in the same concrete tomb. Dennis told Sarah something else. Something that made her hands shake as she took notes. The clothes on the bodies weren't from the 1980s. They weren't from the 1970s either. They were from the 1920s. Whoever buried those children did it more than 60 years before they were discovered. Sarah asked Dennis if he reported what he saw. He said he did. To the police chief. To the county coroner. To everyone at that meeting. And they all agreed. No one would ever speak of it again. Sarah published her article. It ran in a small independent paper. The story caused a brief stir, but without corroboration, it faded. Dennis Carver died in a car accident 6 months later. Single vehicle collision. No witnesses. The county engineer retired and moved to Alaska. Sarah Pendleton continued investigating for 2 more years. Then she stopped. She won't say why. When asked about the Rosewood case, she says the same thing every time. Some stories are better left buried. In 2019, a researcher named Michael Torres tried to access the county coroner's records from 1987. He was told the records were destroyed in a fire. But there was no fire. The elementary school still stands in Rosewood. Children play on the playground every day, unaware of what lies beneath the foundation. And the people who attended that meeting? Most are dead now. But the ones who are still alive won't talk. They signed something that night. A document. Promise. They call it the Silence Agreement. And to this day, not one person has broken it. On March 14, 2009, 32 people across the United States received the same voicemail. They had nothing in common. Different ages, different states, different careers. But the message was identical. And it shouldn't have been possible. The voicemail was 19 seconds long. It began with breathing. Slow. Labored. Then a voice. Female. Young. She said, "They're not letting me leave. If you hear this, it means I'm already gone. Check the basement. Please. Check the basement." Then silence. Every person who received the message reported it to police. In every case, investigators traced the call. It came from a disconnected number. A landline that hadn't been active since 1993. The phone company confirmed. The number had been permanently deactivated 16 years earlier. It was impossible for a call to originate from that line. But it did. The FBI got involved. They interviewed all 32 recipients. They found one connection. In 1993, the year that phone number was disconnected, all 32 people lived within a 50-mile radius of each other. Most had moved since then, some multiple times. But in 1993, they were all in the same area. Northern Idaho. One of the recipients, a woman named Angela Moretti, decided to check her basement. She'd lived in the same house since 1991. She knew every inch of it. But she'd never noticed the seam, a thin line in the concrete floor, hidden under a storage shelf. She moved the shelf. She traced the seam with her finger. It formed a square. She called her husband. They pried up the concrete panel. Underneath was a crawl space, and inside the crawl space was a metal box. The box contained a driver's license, expired, from 1992, a photograph of a young woman, blonde, smiling, standing in front of a house. A newspaper clipping from October 1993. Headline, "Local Woman Missing," and a cassette tape. Angela called the police immediately. The FBI played the cassette. It was a recording, a confession. A man's voice, calm, detached. He described abducting the woman in the photograph. He described holding her in a basement. He described what he did to her. And at the end of the tape, he said, "If you're hearing this, you're one of the 32. I've been watching all of you. You were supposed to find her. But you didn't. You failed her. And now you'll spend the rest of your lives knowing you could have saved her." The FBI launched a massive investigation. They identified the woman in the photograph. Her name was Rebecca Holt. She disappeared on October 18, 1993. Her case went cold after 6 months. The man's voice on the tape was never identified. Forensic analysis couldn't match it to any known suspect. They searched Angela's property. They found nothing else. They searched the properties of the other 31 recipients. Same result. How did the voicemail get sent in 2009 from a phone disconnected in 1993? Technology experts say it's impossible. Phone networks don't work that way. Disconnected numbers can't transmit calls. And yet, 32 people have the voicemail saved on their phones. Investigators believe someone had access to the phone company's systems, that they spoofed the old number, that they planned this for years, but they can't prove it. And Rebecca Holt's body has never been found. In 2015, one of the 32 recipients, a man named Todd Brennan, received another message. Same voice. She said, "You still haven't checked." Todd tore apart his basement. He found nothing. 3 days later, he checked his backyard. Buried 4 feet down, wrapped in plastic, was a box. Inside was a single photograph. It was him, from 1993, standing in his driveway. Written on the back, "I was always watching." Todd moved out of his house the next day. He won't talk about it. None of them will. Chicago, winter of 2001. The Whitmore Apartments. A 6-story building on the north side. Unit 4F had been empty for 9 years. No one knew why. A graduate student named Marcus Webb needed cheap housing. He found a listing for apartment 4F. The rent was absurdly low. He asked the landlord why. The landlord said the previous tenant moved out suddenly, left everything behind. Marcus didn't care. He signed the lease. The apartment was furnished. Old furniture, dusty, but functional. Marcus noticed something odd. There was a door at the end of the hallway, locked. He asked the landlord for the key. The landlord said there was no key. That door had been locked since before he bought the building. Marcus asked what was behind it. The landlord said he didn't know. Marcus thought he was joking. He wasn't. Marcus tried picking the lock. It didn't work. He tried forcing it open. The door wouldn't budge. He examined it closely. Solid wood. Heavy deadbolt. No visible damage. But here's what bothered him. There was no gap under the door. No light came through. No air. It was sealed completely. Like it wasn't a door to another room. Like it was a door to nothing. 3 weeks into living there, Marcus heard something. 3:17 a.m. A soft thumping. Coming from behind the locked door. He pressed his ear against the wood. The thumping was rhythmic. Steady. Like footsteps. He called out. "Hello!" The footsteps stopped. Marcus went to the city records office. He found the original blueprints for the Whitmore apartments. According to the plans, there was no room behind that door. It opened to an exterior wall. A dead space, maybe 6 inches deep. Not enough for a person to stand in. Not enough for anything. Marcus found the name of the last person who lived in for F. A man named David Nguyen. He tracked down David's family. They lived in California now. David's sister agreed to talk. She told Marcus that David became obsessed with that door. He would sit outside it for hours, listening. One night, David called her. He was frantic. He said, "I heard someone behind the door. They said my name." 2 days later, David vanished. His family filed a missing person report. Police searched the apartment. They found no sign of him. David's belongings were still there. His wallet, his keys, his phone. But David was gone. Marcus couldn't sleep. The thumping came every night. Always at 3:17 a.m. One night, he recorded it. He played it back at slower speed. The thumping wasn't random. It was Morse code. And it spelled out a message. "Let me out." Marcus called a locksmith. He told him to drill through the deadbolt. The locksmith tried. His drill bit broke. He tried a stronger bit. Same result. He said the lock was reinforced with something. Steel. Maybe titanium. He couldn't open it. Marcus asked, "What kind of lock is built to never be opened?" The locksmith had no answer. Marcus couldn't take it anymore. He decided to leave. He was packing when he heard something different. Not thumping. Scratching. Coming from behind the door. Frantic. Desperate. Then a voice. Muffled. But clear enough. "Please. I don't want to be here anymore." It was David Nguyen. Marcus called the police. They came. They heard nothing. They told him stress was making him paranoid. They left. Marcus moved out the next day. He reported everything to the building owner. The owner said he'd look into it. 2 months later, Marcus drove past the Whitmore apartments. Unit 4F had a new tenant. The blueprints say there's no room behind that door. But people hear sounds. David Nguyen disappeared. And that locked door has never been opened. In 2017, a paranormal investigator tried to get permission to examine apartment 4F. The building owner refused. When pressed, he said, "Some doors are locked for a reason." Marcus Webb still lives in Chicago. He's a professor now. But he won't drive past the Whitmore apartments. And if you ask him about apartment 4F, he'll tell you the same thing. Whatever's behind that door knows your name. And once it does, you can never forget it. Prescott, Arizona. Summer of 2012. A genealogist named Linda Carr was hired to trace a family tree. Standard work. She'd done it hundreds of times. But this one was different. This one led her to a family that never existed. Her client was a woman named Jennifer Hale. Mid-40s. Polite. Nervous. Jennifer said she was adopted and wanted to find her biological family. She had one clue. A photograph from 1974. For people. A man, a woman, 2 children. Smiling. Standing in front of a house. On the back, someone had written, "The Hale family. August 1974. Home." Jennifer said this was her family. She'd been told she was the baby in the photograph. But she needed proof. Linda started with census records, birth certificates, property deeds. She couldn't find anyone named Hale in Prescott in 1974. She expanded her search. Statewide, then nationwide. No match. She tried facial recognition software on the photograph. No hits. She tried reverse image search. Nothing. It was like the people in the photograph didn't exist. Linda noticed something in the background of the photo. A house number. She cross-referenced it with property records in Prescott. 1448 Maple Drive. The house existed. Linda drove to 1448 Maple Drive. The house was still there. Old, weathered, but intact. She knocked. No answer. She checked county records. The house had been abandoned since 1975. No one had lived there for 37 years. Linda obtained permission from the county to enter the property. Inside, everything was covered in dust. Furniture, dishes, photographs. It looked like the family had just left one day and never came back. Linda found more photographs. The same 4 people from Jennifer's photo. But something was wrong. Every photograph was dated August 1974. Not July. Not September. Only August. Dozens of photos. All from the same month. Linda found a filing cabinet in the bedroom. Inside were documents. Birth certificates for the 2 children. Marriage license for the parents. But when Linda checked the county records, none of these documents existed in the official database. They were forgeries. Perfect forgeries. Right paper. Right seals. Right signatures. But they weren't real. Linda went to the local elementary school. She asked if they had records for the Hale children. The registrar checked. 2 children with those names were enrolled in August 1974. But they only attended for 3 days. Then they were withdrawn. No forwarding address. No explanation. Linda found a neighbor who'd lived on Maple Drive since 1970. An elderly woman named Dolores. Linda showed her the photograph. Dolores went pale. She said, "I remember them. They moved in one day. All 4 of them. August 14th, 1974. They seemed happy." Linda asked what happened to them. Dolores said, "They vanished. August 18th, 1974. I woke up one morning, and the house was empty, like they'd never been there." Linda asked if anyone investigated. Dolores said, "The police came. They said there was no record of anyone living there. They said I must have been confused." But Dolores wasn't confused. She remembered the family clearly. She remembered their names. She remembered playing with the children. And she remembered the last thing the mother said to her. "If anyone asks, we were never here." Linda presented her findings to Jennifer. The family in the photograph existed. For 4 days. In August 1974. Then they disappeared. And every trace of them was erased. Except the photograph. Jennifer asked, "If they were erased, how do I exist?" Linda had no answer. Jennifer took a DNA test. The results showed she had no living relatives. Not distant cousins. Not 3rd or 4th connections. No one. Genetically, Jennifer Hale was unique. Linda kept investigating. She couldn't let it go. She found something in the National Archives. A classified document. Declassified in 2010. It referenced a program from the 1970s. Operation Clean Slate. The purpose? To relocate witnesses in extreme danger. To give them new identities. To erase their old lives completely. The program was discontinued in 1976. No records were kept. But the document mentioned one thing. Families in the program were given 4 days to acclimate to their new identities. For days, Linda told Jennifer what she found. Jennifer's biological family existed, but they were placed in witness protection. Something went wrong. The family disappeared, and Jennifer was left behind. By accident? On purpose? No one knows. Jennifer tried to get more information from the federal government. Her requests were denied. She hired lawyers. They got nowhere. In 2019, Jennifer filed a lawsuit. It was dismissed. Reason given: no standing. The plaintiffs cannot prove the existence of the individuals in question. Jennifer still has the photograph. She looks at it every day. For people. Smiling. Happy. A family that never existed. Except they did. For 4 days. In August 1974. And then they were gone. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. November 2008. A man walked into a police station and confessed to murder. His name was Raymond Oakley, 53 years old. Unemployed. No criminal record. He told detectives he'd killed 7 people over the course of 20 years. He gave names, dates, locations. The detectives listened. And then they realized something. None of the murders he described had ever been reported. Raymond was calm, methodical. He spoke like he was reading from a script. He said, "I killed Margaret Poole on June 3, 1989. I buried her in Cypress Swamp." The detectives checked. No missing person report for Margaret Poole. No body ever found in Cypress Swamp. Raymond continued, "I killed Thomas Lang on December 12, 1993. I left him in an abandoned warehouse on River Road. No missing person report for Thomas Lang. No body found in any warehouse." Raymond confessed to 5 more murders. None of the victims existed. Detectives thought Raymond was mentally ill, making it up. But Raymond provided details, specific details. He described Margaret Poole's clothing, her jewelry, her car. He described Thomas Lang's tattoos, his wallet, his last words. He knew things that only the killer would know. Except there was no crime. Police decided to investigate anyway. They went to Cypress Swamp. They brought cadaver dogs. The dogs hit on something. 3 feet below the surface. They dug. They found bones. Human bones. Female. Approximate age at death. Late 20s. Carbon dating suggested she'd been dead for about 20 years. DNA testing identified her. Margaret Poole. She'd never been reported missing. Police searched every location Raymond mentioned. They found remains at 4 of the 7 sites. For confirmed murders. The other 3, no remains. But the locations matched Raymond's descriptions perfectly. Detectives tried to find family members for the victims. Margaret Poole had no family, no friends, no employer. Thomas Lang had no family, no friends, no job. The other victims? Same story. People with no connections. No one to notice they were gone. Raymond had chosen them carefully. Detectives asked Raymond, "Why did you confess?" Raymond said, "Because I was told to." By who? The others. What others? Raymond smiled. The ones who haven't confessed yet. 3 weeks after Raymond's confession, police departments in 8 different states received letters. All identical. Typed. No return address. Postmarked from different cities. Each letter contained a confession. Different names. Different murders. But the same format. The same tone. Like they'd all been written by the same person. FBI profilers believed it was a group. A network of killers. They theorized that Raymond's confession was planned. A signal. Once he confessed, the others followed. But why? What was the point? Raymond Oakley was charged with 4 counts of murder. He pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. During sentencing, the judge asked if he had anything to say. Raymond said, "There are 93 others. They're waiting. When they're ready, they'll confess too." The courtroom went silent. The FBI investigated Raymond's claim. They couldn't confirm a network, but they couldn't disprove it either. Over the next 3 years, 17 more people in different states confessed to murders that had never been reported. In every case, remains were found. In every case, the victims were people no one missed. A forensic psychologist named Dr. Elena Vasquez studied the confessions. She noticed something. Every confessed killer used the same phrase, "I was told to." Every killer selected victims with no social ties. Every killer waited years, sometimes decades, before confessing. Dr. Vasquez believed there was a system, a set of rules, but she couldn't figure out what they were. In 2015, Dr. Vasquez received an anonymous email. Contained a list. 93 names. Next to each name was a number. Raymond Oakley. Number 7. 17 other names were crossed out. the ones who'd already confessed. 76 names remained. At the bottom of the email was a single sentence. "We are waiting for permission." Dr. Vasquez forwarded the email to the FBI. They couldn't trace it. The names on the list? All real people. All alive. All living in the United States. But none had criminal records. None were under investigation. The FBI couldn't do anything. You can't arrest someone for appearing on an anonymous list. Raymond Oakley is still in prison. He's been interviewed dozens of times. He never wavers, never adds new information. He just repeats, "I was told to confess, so I did." When asked who told him, he says, "You wouldn't believe me." When pressed, he says, "It's not a person, it's a system." 76 names remain on that list. 76 people who, according to an anonymous email, are killers waiting to confess. The FBI monitors them, quietly, but they haven't done anything wrong. Not yet. In 2021, another letter arrived at police headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska. Same format, same tone. A confession to a murder that had never been reported. Police investigated. They found a body. The killer was number 18. 75 remain. They're waiting. For what? No one knows. But Raymond Oakley said something during his last interview. Something that keeps investigators awake at night. He said, "The confessions aren't about justice. They're about record keeping. When we're all gone, someone needs to know what we did. Someone needs to remember them." When asked who them was, Raymond smiled. The ones who had no one. And then he stopped talking. Somewhere in America, 75 people are living normal lives. They have jobs, families, friends, and they're waiting for a signal, a message, permission. And when they confess, police will find bodies. People no one reported missing. People the world forgot. The question isn't whether they'll confess. The question is, how many more victims are there? How many people vanished without anyone noticing? And who decides when it's time to tell the truth? These are the 5 cases everyone's too scared to talk about. Not because they're unsolved, but because they were solved. And the answers were worse than the mysteries. The silence agreement in Rosewood. The voicemail from a disconnected line. The locked door in apartment 4F. The family that never existed. And the confession that revealed a network of killers no one can stop. These cases are buried in restricted files, sealed by court orders, hidden behind non-disclosure agreements. But they're real. And now you know. If this story disturbed you, good. It should. Because there are more stories like these. And maybe one day someone will be brave enough to tell them. Until then, subscribe. Turn on notifications. And remember, not every mystery deserves to be solved. Some truths are better left in the dark.